doesn't matter where you live now. So long as you are doing vital work, it must be seen, it will be seen. Just be beautiful.
Give thanks and praises unto Jah Rastafari. Yeah, man.
When I see I don't want no person tell I nothing. All of them with them kind of tons of them are liar. I come see it for yourself. My name is Joseph Hill. Rastafari.
Welcome to our video exploring the rich and vibrant culture of Joseph Hill. Join us on a journey as we delve into the diverse facets of his cultural influence, discovering the essence of this remarkable figure and the lasting impact he has left on our world. Joseph Hill was born in 1949 in the parish of St. Catherine in Jamaica and was raised in a Christian household. He attended his local church's choir at a very early age and fashioned his first drum out of a milk can, and he used a piece of his school uniform as the skin. Hill then attended the Jamaica School of Arts, Science and Technology and began to work with a Linstead-based sound system called Bismarck, where he was able to try his hand at DJing, which was to serve him in good stead years later. In the late 1960s, early 1970s, Hill joined a band called the Soul Defenders, which was one of the backing bands at Studio One. The work Hill did with them can be heard on the Heartbeat CD The Soul Defenders at Studio One. Hill played percussion, provided background vocals and recorded songs like Take Me Girl. He also recorded an early track called Behold at Studio One, which was later released on the Heartbeat compilation Full Up Best of Studio One Volume 2. The Soul Defenders, who took over from Sound Dimension in the early 1970s, included Festus Fezwalker on bass guitar, Ja Privy on guitar, and Vincent Morgan on keyboards, and they played behind Freddie McKay on Picture on the Wall and Sweet You Sour You, as well as behind the Selected Few on Selection Train, a tune Hill was to go back to later in his career. The Soul Defenders also backed Nana McLean, Burning Spear, Clifton Gibbs, Freddie McGregor, Prince Francis, Glenn Miller, as well as the famous saxophonist Cedric M. Brooks. They were also influenced by soul music, as is clear from the tune. Entitled A Little Bit, and incorporated the DJ style in their repertoire. The Soul Defenders played on Roland Alfonso's cover of Junior Parker's Way Back Home, as well as on Jackie Mittu's drum song. It seems that Clement Dodd recorded them under different names, one of them being Underground Vegetable. An example of the Soul Defenders' work in that incarnation can be found on the 1970s Studio One compilation album entitled Jamaica Today, the 70s. Playing at Studio One with the Soul Defenders, Hill gained invaluable experience as a percussionist and as a singer. In an interview granted to Jim Dooley, he acknowledged Dodd's importance in his career. Give thanks for that man because he was such an inspirer. Many people surpassed their place, not giving gratitude to what he did to hoist the flag of reggae music. I've got to say, give thanks to Coxzone for the whole house, the whole event, the whole happenings, the whole teachings and the whole activity. At Studio One, Hill rubbed shoulders with singers like the Heptons, Horace Andy and Ken Booth, and he met Winston Rodney, an artist who was to have a great influence on his work. After working with the Soul Defenders, Hill sang and played with various bands like Incorporated and Stepping Stone, which included Glenn Washington on drums. The members of Stepping Stone later backed Culture on the Africa Stand-Alone album. Hill played with Stepping Stone at night while working as a sign painter for Kingston Public Works in the day. Curiously, the idea of forming a band did not come from Joseph Hill himself, but from his cousin Albert Walker, who, after working as an electrician for years, decided to try his hand at music. Hill accepted Walker's proposal and they recruited a third member, who was known as Kenneth, because he was always walking around with his best friend, Kenneth Richards. His real name is Roy Sylvester Days, and he worked as a builder before joining Culture. They first began to call themselves the African Disciples, but chose the name Culture when the guitarist Eric Bingybunny and the producer Maurice Blacka Morwell suggested that their name should reflect the seriousness of their lyrics and their cultural aspect. Hill seemed to like the idea that the musicians who played on the group's first recordings actually named the band. In mid-1970s Jamaica, the word culture referred to certain conscious lyrics and also to Rastafarian culture, as in the phrase roots and culture. The young singers recorded their first single, this time, for the producer Joe Gibbs, and it bore the influence of the Wailers' Burning and Looting, since it was based on the same fire imagery, and included the phrase burning all illusions in a Babylon. The apocalyptic and hard-hitting lyrics may explain why certain radio DJs refused to promote the record. As a consequence, it flopped. Hill and his acolytes recorded a second 45 for Gibbs, entitled Si Deme Come, based on an old Studio One rhythm known as heavy rock or better dub, which was very successful and led to the recording of an album for Gibbs. 2/7's Clash. This album was recorded with a backing band which was variously known as the Professionals when recording for Joe Gibbs or as the Revolutionaries or Revolutionaries when working at Channel One. They included Sly Dunbar, Robbie Shakespeare, Eric Bingy Bunny Lamont, Franklin Bubbler Wall, Herman Marquis, and Bobby Ellis. The album contained many outstanding songs, but it was the title track which attracted the most attention, both in Jamaica and in England, on account of its intriguing lyrics steeped in the Jamaican oral tradition. As indicated by Laura Tana in her book entitled Jamaican Folktales and Oral Histories, Marcus Garvey's prophecies are part of the Rastafarian oral tradition and have been circulating for a long time in Jamaica. In June 1973, Tana recorded a story related by one of her informers, known simply as Bongo, which is similar to the one told by Hill in 2/7's Clash. He prophesy again dat witten dat said time, Kingston and Spanish Town shall meet. Barry Chavans also mentioned the same prophecy in his study of the Rastafarian movement. Another prophecy mentioned in 2/7's Clash and other reggae songs concerns the fact that Marcus Garvey was imprisoned in Spanish Town prison and that when he was released he predicted that no one would ever use the prison's gate again, the gate that he came true. He said they would never carry another man of his category through that gate but it shall seal. In 2/7's Clash, Joseph Hill also mentions a cotton tree which was struck by lightning outside Ferry Police Station. In fact, there was a cotton tree outside the police station in Ferry. It was known as Tom Kringle's cotton tree and was struck by lightning on January 18, 1971, which blocked the nearby road for some time. Hill seems to have transferred this event to the year 1977 to create a dramatic effect. It must also be said that the cotton tree, also known as the silk cotton tree, is an important tree in Jamaican culture as it was beneath a cotton tree that Obeahman would bury the shadow of a living person in order to harm that person. If that shadow was not restored, the person could die. So, the cotton tree is associated with witchcraft, magical powers, but definitely non-Christian beliefs, and the fact that it was struck by thunder and lightning may suggest God's disapproval of the way colonial authorities treated Garvey. The impact of the song was quite spectacular, and in Catch a Fire, Timothy White wrote that on July 7, 1977, the Defense Force was on maximum alert in Jamaica and the streets were deserted. Despite official government bulletins that all was well, the majority of the citizenry declined to leave their homes, so potent had been the suggestive power of culture's record. According to White, the song was actually a prophecy based on the Book of Revelation in which St. John the Divine had predicted the apocalypse. The Book of Revelation contains many references to the number 7, which is associated with magical potency. Thus, the song is based on the resort to potent Jamaican symbols which are extremely suggestive and could be variously interpreted. Nevertheless, White's insistence that there is a strong apocalyptic and biblical element in that song seems to be borne out by the general tone of the song and by the use of the verb to prophesy. 2/7's Clash can also be viewed as the continuation of a long tradition of resistance stretching all the way back to the Great Jamaican Revival of 1861, and which also includes famous prophets like Bedward the Flying Preacher, who prophesied that he would fly to heaven on December 31, 1920. And come back on January 3, 1921, and also Claudius Henry, the repairer of the breach, who prophesied that Jamaican people would be repatriated to Africa on October 5, 1959. The song was also popular in England on its first release and found favor with the punk movement, which had been insisting on the idea that there was no future for English young people at the time. Joseph Hill was notorious for growing impatient with journalists constantly asking him about the interpretation of 2/7's Clash, and he repeatedly said that the song was not necessarily an apocalyptic prophecy, and that the social and political conditions in mid-1970s Jamaica had led to that interpretation. In an interview granted during the Reggae on the River Festival in 1997, Hill said that the song was about two persons locked in conversation or having a discussion about something. Now the words 2 sevens clash means man to man, in terms of 9 passages, are in every human. 7 of which are in your head. Now, when two truthful persons meet, look at each other and speak, that's 2 sevens clash. Thank you for joining me on this fascinating journey into Joseph Hill's story. Stay tuned, as we're just scratching the surface. In a few days, I'll be back with the next chapter, unveiling more about his life and legacy. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on the unfolding narrative. Until then, take care and see you in the next chapter.
Rastaman.